This is Mag212, and today I'm going to be modifying a Nerf stryfe for commission. I'll start by taking all the internals out, and I'll let you guys know what I do next. As you can see now, I have unscrewed the stryfe and taken out all of the internals and put them in this Ziploc bag. It's very important to keep track of all your internals, especially if you're painting. So I've also went and sanded the gun down a little bit. I'm going to sand it a little bit more before I start to paint it. But I have ground down these warning labels here, and I've also ground down the stryfe and the End Strike logo. I'm doing that because I'm making a replica gun, and I think all of those labels would be a little distracting. But I did leave the Nerf logo untouched because I think that everyone should know that this is a Nerf blaster. So now I'm getting a little bit into the aesthetic modification of the stryfe, and I've cut out 4 identical polycarbonate kind of fins, and I'm going to be putting these onto the stryfe like so, and I plan to use machine screws and insert it into the shell of the stryfe just to secure it. But that's all for now, and I'll show you what I got when I do that. So now I've finished mounting the polycarbonate fins on the stryfe. On this side of the stryfe I used 632 machine screws, and then on the inside I have a nut which is locking it in and making it super sturdy. And I also had to remove some of the little lips on the inside. On the other side I was actually unable to use screws because the battery tray is here and that interferes with how the batteries fit in. So I actually just glued them to the battery door. It's still detachable, but I used super glue for that, and I'm going to fill up these 2 holes that I drilled with epoxy putty. So now everything is pretty much finished. I did everything I wanted to do, so now I'm just going to paint it, and I'm going to reinstall the internals, modify them, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the end. It's also worth mentioning that I went ahead and made a little scope. I basically glued a ton of PVC together, and I zip tied it, or used cable ties, which are these white strips. Might be hard to see them, and I strapped it to an End Strike rail attachment. And as you can see, if you just take this scope attachment, you can slide it and it fits onto any kind of rail. But it'll look a little better when I paint it, so I'm going to go ahead and paint the stryfe and this sight. I've finished painting everything, and I have done detailing on all of the parts, so now I'm going to go apply a clear protective coat before I start to do the LED work. So this is my finished replica of a Hyperion pistol from the video game Borderlands 2. I think it turned out really well, and I like the LEDs. I'll leave those on while I talk about it. Internal mods were pretty basic, nothing really incredible because this blaster was meant for cosplay. I'm not running it on any type of crazy batteries because the LEDs are running off of the same batteries as the stryfe is. I did that just so it's easier to replace the batteries for the LEDs, because otherwise I would have to put a battery inside the blaster, and then that would lead to the buyer having to disassemble the entire gun to replace the battery. And since this gun is very focused on its looks, I think it's important that you have the LEDs always functional. So now getting to the LEDs, since I didn't get a chance to explain what I did in my process, I'll just inlay some pictures while I talk about them. First of all, I took my drill bit and my Dremel, and I drilled little holes and cut some slots for the light to shine out. Then I took a kind of plastic paper. It's a very thin plastic sheet, and I glued that onto the inside of the stryfe. And that's just so when you shoot light at the plastic will kind of diffuse the light and make it look less like it's too concentrated in certain areas. For the LEDs, I took the LEDs, I have 2 here, and I wired them in parallel. That means that I soldered positive to positive and negative to negative. And then after I did that, I just secured them down and connected them positive to positive once again, and then I wired it to a little switch at the bottom of the stryfe. And once you turn on the switch, the LEDs come on. Overall, I think the LEDs look very nice and it's really cool. But that's all for the LEDs, so now I'll go over the paint job. The base coat for this was a Rust-Oleum Automotive Gold spray paint. I found this at AutoZone and it gave me a really nice metallic finish and I like the color very much. Along with that, I have a lot of black detailing and a red stripe on both sides of the gun. Some of the parts are duplicolor black vinyl dye, like the tip, triggers, and all buttons that are moving. And then over everything I had a black dry brushing. So now that I've bored you with all of the technical stuff, I'll show you it firing. So once again, no extremely intense modifications. This was for cosplay, so it's just meant to look really cool. The LEDs are really nice. They look very good. They're not too bright, not too dim, which is nice. And overall, this was just a really fun blaster to make, and I hope the commissioner enjoys it. So that concludes my video on my stryfe commission. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. But that's the end. Thanks for watching.